Okay. All right, today we're going to talk about planting trees. The research is new, so as Kelly said, some of the things that we used to do, we should not do any longer, and that's what you're going to learn today. I do want to remind everybody that I am faculty for the University of Florida. I have about 43 master gardeners that I have trained who volunteer for me. And just to remind everybody too that you're not a master gardener if you're not working for that land-grant university. So you may have done it someplace else, you may have been a master gardener someplace else, but you're no longer a master gardener if you're not working for that land-grant university. Here in Florida, it is the University of Florida and also Florida A&M. I have some master gardeners there, so I'm going to thank them for coming. And in addition to that, one of you master gardeners need to pick up the evaluations for this particular PowerPoint. Please help me with that because that helps me show the university that I'm actually working. All right, next slide.
Okay, 1, 2.
One of the important factors of Florida-friendly landscapes is putting the right plant in the right place. What often happens is we like something that we grew up with from another area, and it is not what should be grown here. So it's important that you know also, does it belong in full sun? Does it like shade? Dogwood and French trees, by the way, they're fine with full sun. If it's a wet site, that's very restricted. You have to select the right plant for that, but you can also plant it higher and drier. But ultimately, those roots are going to get into that water area, so you need to select a plant that will accept that. Daehoon holly, red maple, sweet gum, bald cypress would be best. And today they have 3 of those trees for you, I think. Most trees will be adapted to any kind of well-drained site. Our sandy soil takes woody ornamentals like trees and shrubs very well. Don't be misled into thinking you've got to have a heavy organic matter for trees and shrubs. You do not. Perennials, yes. Vegetables, yes. But trees and shrubs, no. Group your plants according to their needs. In other words, don't have something that prefers full sun and another that prefers shade and group them together. That's not very good planting. The same thing with if it's a wet site, don't put drought-tolerant plants in there. They will be unhappy. You'll be unhappy, they'll be unhappy, everybody will hate it. All right, next slide. We really do need to make room for the tree. So what we have been, what the research has shown us most recently is that root space is critical. We sort of ignore that. We also ignore the fact that the plants will grow. They'll get taller and they'll get wider. So you want to make sure that you're not competing and allowing anything to compete with that tree, especially underneath the canopy. So some of these plants require larger root space. The larger the tree, the larger the root space. Don't plant anything underneath the drip line. The drip line is at the edge of the branches. So when the branches are going out, you just drop a line there called the drip line. Don't plant anything underneath that. And we make that mistake quite a bit. No other woody plants, especially like Indian hawthorns, azaleas, camellias, those should not be planted underneath the tree canopy. Look at the mature height of your trees, and the ones that they're selecting today, she gives you those mature heights and spread. Planting a tree 3 feet from a house is a very poor idea. They need to be 20 feet or so out. You look at your bald cypress, they get 80 feet tall by about 30 feet wide. That's not good to put close to a house. Red maple, 75 feet tall, 35 feet wide. Again, look at their mature space. How much space do they need? All right, next slide. So what you want to do is you want to look up, and that seems really silly, I know, but look up. If you've got something overhead, then planting a tree there will not be a good idea. Before you dig, call 811. They will come out and mark the areas that will have electricity or telephone or cable, they'll mark them for you. So when you look up, are there power lines? Don't plant the tree. Do you have eaves of the house? Don't plant the tree. Do you see any other obstruction? Then do not plant the tree. Or what these people have done. Now think about how far away that is from the telephone poles. Do you see it? Electric poles. Now that's probably a good 30 feet or more, but still they needed to think about the spread of that tree. How wide was it going? And now so they've cut out this big C out of this tree, which looks really silly, but that's what they've had to do to accommodate the electrical wires. Let's go to the next slide. Not only do we need to look up above, but we also need to think about below ground hazards. You have to, again, examine how wide your trees could be. Putting that sidewalk that close to the tree is a mistake. It will never, that sidewalk will always lift up. And how far away is that from that tree? It wasn't even maybe 2 feet originally, was it? That's poor planning. You can bridge that root, make an actual little bridge over it, but cutting that root will not solve that problem. In a few years, those roots will come right back and put that sidewalk right up. So it should have been more like 10 or 20 feet away. That would have been better. Now, one thing to know about roots is that they go 2 to 3 times the drip line. Remember when I talked about the drip line, the edge of the branches? 2 to 3 times that. Well, they're way out there in that hedge area, aren't they? That sidewalk should have been moved or made into a bridge so that the roots would not break it up. You have to look at, will the roots damage the driveway? Yes, it will. Will they damage the sidewalk? It will. They don't necessarily hurt your foundation. They will hit the foundation wall and go down. And most of our foundations are about 18 inches to even deeper. Still, knowing that you're going to be, if you did plant a tree by the house, the branches are going to go out towards your house, and you're going to constantly be pruning them. So it's just a poor plan. Give your roots plenty of space. Live oaks and very large trees require 200 square feet of root space. 200. That's 20 by what? 10. 20 by 10. That's the space they should have with nothing around them. We're not doing that on a regular basis, and we should. Next slide. All right, what you need to consider is your cold hardiness zone. Here in Nassau County, we are in 9A, which is those of you east of 95, and 8B, those of you west of 95. So I would write that down on my sheet. You're 8B if you're over Callahan and Hilliard or Bryceville. You are 9A if you're Yulee and Fernandina. Plant trees within your zone. The smaller the number, the farther north they go. The larger the number, the farther south they go. So you should not be planting things in zone 10 and 11. That's below Central Florida and Key West. They won't be sustainable. They won't last because we're going to get cold temperatures below 32. That happens to us on a regular basis. Those of you in Hilliard, Bryceville, and Callahan, you can do something in probably 7s, but nothing lower than that. No 6s or 5s or 4s. All right, next slide. One of the critical things that occurs with trees, and this happens to me all the time, as a certified arborist, I go to look at these things, and these are called circling, girdling roots. And we're going to talk about removing them, and I think there's a demonstration that's going to happen. Kelly, are you going to do that for us?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right, so what we want to do is we want to pick up the tree by the pot and put it up on the table, and then I want you to lean it to one side and massage the pot, and massage it. Is Kelly doing that?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay.
She's putting her gloves on. You want her to go to the full root pruning?
Well, I want her to go ahead and massage it a little bit first, and she can pop it up and then do any pruning. I want to talk about that.
Okay. So
she massaged it, then put it upright again.
Yeah, so just massage the pot, and this is to loosen the soil up so that you can get the tree out of the pot.
Yes, safely. Now, if there's any roots coming out of the bottom, those need to be pruned right now. I don't think there will be, but...
She got a clean pot.
Good. All right, then set it upright, and then let's look at the tree as a whole. A lot of people like to prune the bottom limbs off. We're suggesting you not do that. Leave them on until they get a thumb's width. That helps with making the girth of the tree wider. It provides food and good source for it. So do not remove those bottom limbs until they are at least a thumb's width. That's new research too.
She's removing the stake right now, Becky.
Okay. And we don't need to plant it with a stake. It should be fine. We don't want to leave that on because those green top will girdle the tree and damage the trunk. All right, how are we doing?
We're good. She's got the stake off and she's looking for the root collar. She's got it tipped towards the crown.
All right, now, if there's any at the very top that seem to be competing with the leader, we want one limb going up straight, and we don't want anybody competing with it. Do we have any of those?
No,
like
this is a nice clean live oak.
Excellent. All right. Now, what she's going to do is she's going to take a saw, take off 1/4 the root ball all the way down to the bottom. After she pulls it out of the pot.
1/4, she said.
1/4, the outer portion, all the way down.
She's doing the bottom, but you also want the sides, correct?
That is correct.
Bottom's done. Now she's working on the sides.
Okay.
So the question is why you do that, Becky?
Because if we don't do that, then all those little, what they do is when they move the plant to another pot, the roots should be going straight out like the spokes of a wheel. They will hit that edge of the pot and turn. That's the circling. And if we don't cut that, then they'll continue to do it forever.
And so you can see the picture on the slide, how these roots are going in circles.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. That's the reason we do it. We do the outer edge, make them go straight.
And then the second point is by cutting the roots, you're actually encouraging the tree to regrow new roots. So you're actually stimulating it to get ready to adapt to its new location, basically.
Absolutely. Now, what has happened at the growers is they transferred them from a little pot to a bigger pot 2 or 3 times and never cut the roots. So we're making that initial cut before we plant it, but now let's go look at the photos. Do you see his finger is on a circling root, and it's very, very close to the trunk. But there's also another one right up above it, and there's another one that's actually wrapping around the trunk about his knuckle. Do you see that? Those have to be removed. and then the one about an inch below his finger, that's got to be removed. So what you have to do is you have to take the soil off the top and try to find those. Because we want to get rid of them. The closer they are to the trunk, the more dangerous they are. So now let's look at the picture below. Somebody didn't take the soil off. See that brown area, that line? Brown area, they put it in the pot too deep. That's a discoloration of the bark of the tree. So when they took the soil off to look at the roots, do you see how many circling and girdling ones we have here? We have many. Those are going to have to, you pick up, you follow the trunk, the root to the trunk, cut it. Because that one that's about to start, about 6 o'clock goes around, that one should be cut right at the 6 o'clock hour and removed. The other ones are what we call girdling, just like tourniquets. Those need to be cut as well because everything should go out straight from the trunk, the spokes of a wheel. Does that make sense? If you leave it on, it will, as the trunk gets larger, it will restrict water to the trunk and girdle it. It's a lot of work planting trees initially. Anybody have a question about that?
You do the same thing for bushes?
Same for bushes?
Yes, none of them like this. This is not a good thing. And this is one of the #1 killers. It also is the reason why you see these large trees fall over. We put grass on top of them. Bad idea. We add too much soil and plant them too deep. Bad idea. You should be able to get to these roots within an inch of soil. That's it. Otherwise, they're going to just smother and they're going to try to come up to the ground. So in this instance, these pictures, this is a lot of work to get this ready, but if we do it when they're young, we'll have that kind of tree that will live a long time for us. All right, let's go look at the next picture. Next slide.
Okay.
That top picture is perfection. The person removed a little bit of soil and you can see the top roots coming off. And you can see most of them are going straight out like the spoke of a wheel. Perfect. It's high, not too deep in the ground. Perfect. So you have to remove that top layer of soil and you reach the major roots. And then of course they should go out like the spoke of a wheel. The planting hole, now this is different too. We used to just do post hole digging and plop it down in. That's a bad idea. We need to loosen the soil all around the root ball 2 to 3 times the root ball. So most root balls are about a foot. So we need to go out 3 feet all the way around and loosen the soil because we want the roots to go into that loosened and aerated soil. We want to make it easy for it. Now what happened in the picture below, can you see how deep that tree was? Those roots are not going straight out, they're coming up. They're desperate for air. So this was probably planted about 6 to 8 inches, maybe more, too deeply. So you can avoid that when you plant your tree, and you should plant it right at slightly above soil level. I should see the roots, coming up, but so I usually do mine about just at soil level, and it will settle a little bit. So think about the top one, where it should be. The bottom one's too deep. You should be able to see a natural flare at the bottom where the big roots come off. And I've got a couple of pictures, and I'll show this to you. Let's go to the next slide. So we said loosen the soil 2 to 3 times the root ball, which is what we've done here. Do not amend the soil. no Epsom salts, no manures, no hormones, no bone meal, no fertilizers. Do not amend the soil. I know we want to. I know we were told that, and there are plenty of businesses that will sell you whatever you want to buy. Our research shows not to do that, because then all you've done is told the tree you're putting it in a bigger pot, and we don't want it to do that. We want it to go out into our natural soil and be happy. You can amend the whole bed that you're going to plant it in. That's okay. So you amend a 6-foot swath. That's okay. You can do that, but just don't amend the hole it's going to be in. It's still going to go way beyond that 6 feet. Way beyond that 6 feet. Bottom should have a natural flare. Do you see how this kind of flares out on the left hand side? That tree doesn't look like a stick, does it, or a fence post? It has a flare on it. That means it's right at soil level. I'm happy with it. If you have wet sites, you're going to have to build the soil up and or choose a tree that can tolerate some wet. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about mulch. Now, on this picture, you see that there's a natural flare at the bottom of the trunk. There's not grass nearby. Back it up. Don't use rock for mulch. That should be on no woody ornamentals, no camellias, no crepe myrtles, no azaleas. Terrible thing to put in them. It compacts the soil and retains heat. Pine products are preferred. Well, this is pine country. Pine farmers. Let's support them. Buy local. The mulch should only be 2 to 3 inches deep. That means that if you want to replace it every year, you need to take out the old stuff. Compost it, do something with it. But it should never be more than 2 to 3 inches deep. And you can taper it. I leave a portion around the tree with nothing but soil there. And I would taper it like 1 inch there and then taper it out to 2 inches far out. All right, next slide. Generally, mulch should not touch the trunk of any tree or shrub. The larger the tree, the larger the space around the trunk. These are little gingers, variegated gingers, and if they get around the root, it's not a big deal. But I will tell you that mine are in the shade, and these plants do not need a lot of water. And of course, that sacred the tall palmettos, they don't need water either. If you're going to refresh it again, take out the old, replace with new. Do not put down a weed cloth or plastic material underneath it. It compacts the soil, retains heat, and there are some weeds like dogweed that will build up a large supply underneath that dark and then pop. Sedges and Florida betony will pop up through that plastic stuff anyway. So let's talk about the next picture. What's wrong with this picture? Come on.
You said rocks?
Yeah, no rocks, right? Do you see a natural flare on this tree? No. We sure don't, do we? That rock should be taken off, and it needs a larger, much larger area of mulch and grass away from it.
How did this tree grow with all the rocks around it?
The question was, how did this tree grow with all the rocks around it?
It did. They put that in later on, but don't worry, it'll start dying back because of it. You can flat kill that tree with that rock.
Yeah.
You put rock around it, and I did that just as an experiment in my backyard. I put a little pea gravel, because I kept preaching this, and I thought, so I put it around I had to take down, that tree had to be 60 feet tall. It was a laurel oak. So I'm telling you, that'll kill it. So stop that. Next slide. Okay, we're still talking about mulch. This mulch volcano that the landscapers do is a bad plan. This should never be done. What's the first thing you notice? Do you see a flare at the bottom of that tree? No. It's planted too deeply. We have smothered that thing with mulch. We should remove all the mulch from that area and spread it out farther up the track. Now you can tell this is not us, this is not our area because we don't have that pretty grass. But practice seal is done all over the United States, and it's not a good one. And I'm not sure why we as Americans pick up bad habits rather than good ones, but I would like us, those of us receiving trees, to plant to do the right thing to it so people maybe would pick up the right habits. That would be good. When you do this to them, you will see dieback on the tips of the tree. And I just see it everywhere. It drives me insane. Remember that the grass should be as far away from the tree as possible. The chemicals we apply to grasses, we should not put on trees. So I'm going to give you a hint on that. The chemicals are listed at the bottom that can affect trees. Metsulfuron. We found out that we could kill an oak tree with metsulfuron. Reading the label would tell you to use like a teaspoon per acre. We don't do that. We don't read the label. And we're killing our stuff from just that one. And you know what? That metsulfuron is used for weed killing. Well, understand that the chemical can make no distinction between the broadleaf weed you want to kill and that tree. It doesn't know the difference. 2,4-D is another one, or dicamba. Keep them away from trees. Go home and look at your label for your herbicide, your weed killers. Americans, we need to start reading the label. Go back up and look at the general rule. Nothing within 3 times the diameter of the tree. You shouldn't grow anything within no mulch, nothing. So when you think about that tree right there, probably looks about 18 inches. You should multiply that by 3 and not plant anything near that. All right. Let's go look at the next one. What's wrong with this picture?
Everything.
Thank you. God love you. You made my day. All right, what's the first thing we notice about the tree? Any flare? Do we see a flare? Do you see a flare?
Nope.
No, it's a straight stick, isn't it? Just like a fence post. Now, what did I tell you about 3 times? Okay, so certainly they've planted plants within 3 times that diameter of that trunk. Yeah, that needs to go. What's the other one?
Rocks.
Rocks. I'd move that up about 6 feet at the least. 6 feet, I'd move those rocks out. And we think they're pretty. They're nice and pretty, but they should be nowhere near that trunk plate. And then the flowers need to be moved out at least 4 feet. All right? Please, 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 please don't do this. And again, hopefully, people will start picking up our good habits rather than our bad ones. This tree is a feature in your yard. It's the thing that brings value to the yard. So pulling it away from that and featuring the tree is what we should be doing. So think about that in your own yard. When you go plant this tree, you don't want competition. And it will live years and years and years for you. So let me ask you this. How long do you think a live oak lives? How long?
300 years.
300?
Yeah, 300, 350 years. How long do you think it lives in an urban environment?
50.
15 is correct. 12 to 15, actually 12 to 15. So businesses and they have to put it out there initially, but once it dies, they go, oh, well, it died. They should not be put in parking lots unless they have 200 square feet. Now, on my demonstration garden, my magnolias, my ball cypress, they've got plenty of root space, and they have done beautifully in a median, hot, terrible situation because I gave them plenty of root space. Now, your next question should be, well, yeah, but you probably water it and take care of it. No, they're not watered. The only thing I did differently in those medium, like a commercial area, was I gave them plenty of root space. That was it. And those things have survived now for 15 years. And they're beautiful. I've got hollies in a medium. Holly trees. So my point is, you don't give them enough root room and you put all those woody ornamentals around them, Indian hawthorns, viburnum, and whatever else we like to plant. They're not going to do well. They are already in a hard environment. We need to make sure that we give them plenty of root space. All right, fine. Now, I know this is going to blow your mind because none of us do it correctly, but here we go. Most of the trees you have are going to be the first one, less than 2-inch caliber. So, for irrigation for vigor, if we want them to really do well, we water them daily for 2 weeks, then every other day for 2 months, and then weekly until they're established. If we just want them to hang on for dear life and survive, we water them twice weekly for 2 to 3 months. And we don't even do that. So I want you to consider that and understand that the larger the tree is, the more water it initially requires. For a 2 to 4 inch caliper, which is very common, that needs to be watered daily for a month, then every other day for 3 months, and then weekly until it's established. If you just want it to survive, twice weekly for 3 to 4 months.
Question?
We still can do that.
What is a caliper?
The question is, what is a caliper?
Yeah, caliper, when they're young, you go up about, you go to the bottom of the tree, go up a bit, and measure that area. That's the caliper when they're babies and you're transplanting them. Diameter is measured at breast height when they're mature trees. We kind of use them interchangeably, but what we're saying to you is the ones that you're getting will probably be under 2 inches today. You might have a few that are 2 to 4. The caliper, you're just going to go up about 12 inches and measure it.
Another question?
I think,
How long will trees grow and rocks around it?
How long will trees grow if there are rocks around it?
it depends on their age. The older they are, the shorter the life. You kill them quicker. But you need to go home and remove those rocks. Let me give you another hint on those rocks. This doesn't have anything to do with trees, but this will save you some money. You should have no mulch touching the trunk or touching the foundation of the home. Remove it out, put the rocks there along your foundation. Because if you don't, you have made the termites very happy and given them a nice, warm, moist home. They're not that comfortable in rocks, but they will be in mulch. So if, for instance, you have a termite, the termite company can't look to you and say, you put that mulch there, you created that problem, you're responsible. So that was free, use your rocks there. All right, next slide.
How much water, since water daily, like how long do you let it go?
So before we move on, the question is watering daily, how much water?
Usually we want to do a ½ inch every time, but the other rule is 2 to 4 gallons per inch. caliper. So if you got a 2-inch, then you're doing 4 times 2, which is 8 gallons. That make sense?
Yeah. Okay, we're on the difference between caliper and diameter, which you already answered.
Yeah. So for caliper is 12 inches above the ground. That's caliper when they're babies. And diameter is breast height when they're mature. Now let's look at this picture. What do you notice about the tree trunk? Do you see a flare at the bottom?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do, don't you? Do you see any grass nearby?
Yeah.
It's pretty far away. It's got a nice area with just mulch. Yeah. It does have a central trunk, but it has a couple of competing ones. Those could be removed. But this is probably in a park, and somebody's done this right. All right, when you plant, which was the next slide. When you plant, if they come in a pot, you can plant any time of year. But you want to avoid our hot summer because it requires a lot more water. If you order something bare root, you have to plant in the dormant season, which for us is in the winter. And fruit trees are typically done in the winter. Ball and burlap, those are done in the fall and the spring. Now let me give you a hint about this burlap. You need to be able to test if it's natural or if it's synthetic. If it's synthetic, it won't ever break down. And I've gone to a couple of big subdivisions where they have used synthetic and the poor tree is dying just because of that, because it can't get the roots out. How do you know if it's synthetic? What can you do? Well, take a lighter and try to burn it. If it's natural, it'll burn. If it's synthetic, it'll melt. Take it off. All of it. Okay. Palms and cycads to be planted in warm weather, April through September. So I know sometimes the subdivisions want to come in and they'll plop these palms down in the winter, and they're not going to do anything. They're just going to sit there because it's too cold for the roots to spread. So you might suggest to your gardeners or your landscapers, I don't want that planted in the winter. I want my palms in the summer. They're the exceptions to the rule. And cycads are cooties, sago palms, cardboard plant. Those are cycads.